Hi and welcome everyone. What are we going to talk about today? Today, until now it was a very sunny day over here, but right now it seems to get cloudy. So good point to stay at home and to go with me over the 8 Flexbox layouts you should know, and probably later on going over the grid layout. Okay, awesome. Thanks for the feedback. So the first thing I would like to start with today is the setup of my application, so that everyone knows if there's a difference between your setup and my setup. So overall, I do have a workspace, which you can see by seeing this file workspace.json. And within that, I have my apps and my app for today. So let's close. Okay. So then within my packages, I do have a couple of packages, but I'm not using them today. So you're good to go without packages. And then I have a couple of overrides which are basically for, let me just increase the size here, which is basically only to add the gap functionality, which I'm going to use later in the tutorial. And then I do have another one which is for tabs, which I will explain in a bit. It's just fixing a bug. Basically, if you have a couple of tabs and you start with a different tab than the first one, then there won't be an underline for the material design. But let's go over that later. So then I'm going to use my main view. Let's close this one. The main view, which basically only contains my different tabs, which I'm going to open later on with the different steps for the different Flexbox layouts you should know about. So nothing special in here, and I have a single model. Let me just open that. You can see in here I have a single store, which is a chat store. We're going over that later on too. And that's basically all my setup I'm using. Nothing else has been majorly modified, so we should be good to go. This is a modern only app. This is not a hybrid app. This is only modern. But everything I'm going to talk about today is valid for modern and classic. You can simply use all these things. It's pure CSS stuff, so you can use them wherever you would like to use it. Okay, so what are we going to start with? Let's start with, first of all, I want to introduce you to what we are going over today. This is on Medium, something I found, 8 Flexbox layouts you should know about. I thought it's perfectly to do that today because in my last tutorial for the JS days, we talked about the different layout things for VBox, HBox, so basically the box layout, which is Flexbox. So a couple of days later, it happened that I came over this paper, and I thought it's a perfect fit. If this is something that modern HTML and the CSS programmers have to know, let's just dive into that. So first thing we need is to run our application. So for that, I'm going into the terminal down here and I'm running Sencha app watch. This creates basically a local server on port 1841, which you can see in here, and it should pop up in here in a second here, 1841. So this is only a local or service I'm running, which allows me to manipulate things and running these at the same time in my local browser. So if I restart this, we are at my home screen. So the first thing I would like to know from you, and if you watch this later as a video and not as a live stream, it would be great if you would leave me a comment about which size you would prefer to see my things. I added this little zoom box in here so I can make it 1.2, 1.4, 1.6, and this is the standard one. So if you could drop me the information what is best for a video to be readable on your computer screen size, that would be awesome. The second thing is that I added a dark mode, and today I'm going to use the dark mode, but if you could leave me a message, just type in dark mode or light mode, which one you like better for tutorials like this. That would be awesome. And while we are talking about being awesome, if you like the content, please subscribe. And okay, 1.4 for today. Okay, so we're going to use 1.4 for today, which is awesome. I think I like this size best too. Okay, so, but anyways, if you for your screen size would prefer a different size, just let me know and we are going to go over that too. I already increased the size of the sidebar, the developer tools. I hope you can read that as good as I can read it. Yeah, so this is my initial view, and this at the same time is the first thing you should know about Flexbox, which is Supercenter. So the author thinks that saying display flex, justify content center and align items center would be the best thing to do. If you have multiple lines in here, don't forget to say text align center. So let's take a look at how we typically do that and what are the equivalents for justify content, align items, and how do we get the display flex. In my past tutorial, I already talked about it, but I would like to do this again. In XJS, this box layout will add a flex to the parent component. So let's take a look in here. Let me resize this. So as you can see in here, if I get this, the element itself is, let's see, panel header. Is it in my panel header? Items toolbar, and I'm trying to style this. So my toolbar actually is not part of the whole thing because I said docked top. So this one won't be within the region of the layout because this is docked top, bottom, left, right. Whatever you say is docked, you can't use for your layout, but everything else should be within that layout. So this one is X-type component with the HTML in here. So let's take a look. This is the toolbar, this is the body. So now that we are within the body, let's dive deeper into it. X component. So this one seems to be our component which we are currently looking at. And there is only the inner HTML with the Flexbox, which I was writing in here with the H1. I'm sorry for if this is a bit, this is not the correct way to lay out things using H1, H2 and so on. Typically what you want to do is to style your components using a CLS, and the H1 should only be used once in all your current page. And then using a layout system would be H2, H3 and stuff like that, just to make sure that Google fully understands your web page and organizes everything right. I'm just using this today to make sure it's big. This is not what you should do, but for today, I guess this should do. So this is my component and this is the parent. This already does have a flex layout because we are saying use the flex layout, which is hbox, vbox, and the box layout. So for everyone who watches this video and who is not using XJS, everything is the same for Angular, for React, and so on. So this is pure HTML and CSS we are looking at today. So we can use this as to center it. I just used this to show, okay, this is for vertical or horizontal. This is the wrapper which we are not using. This is the item align. And this is, if you take a look at here, it says justify content center. So justify content is pack within the layout from XJS. And the align items is, sorry, in here I mistyped that, items is this align thingy. And all the rest we are not using in this view. So far we are good to go with vertical, true, pack center, and so on. So just having one item, vertical, doesn't really matter. So this one will be centered completely using the super centering from this paper with the 8 Flexbox layouts you should know. Okay, let's go for the next one, which I thought a lot about. And I thought, where do we get this at all? Are we using this typically in a medium to huge size companies, intranet thingy where we want to display things for the customer? And I thought, I could think about one thing where we definitely use it. And so I came up with this left-right thing, and I thought, okay, the title bar. The title bar definitely is something where we often want to have a title here and an icon here, a button, which we can press. So I came up with this setup, and if you're thinking about, okay, but you're not using any aligning in here, yeah, that's right, because what XJS is doing out of the box is adding the title, and all items are positioned completely to the right. So if we take a look in here, we can see that this is our layout. The title takes up as much space as possible, and then the items take as much space as they need. And I thought, okay, this is probably not what we are talking about today, because today we do want to talk about the layout stuff, right? So I will remove this and add and go with a different approach. I will add a toolbar which is styled exactly as the panel header so that we get the same visual. And I'm just placing this docked top, and everything should be the same as the standard title. But now I can use an image, and I can use different things and lay out everything the way I want to use that. And let's just run this once. Waiting for the build, saying rerun, and we get an icon, and we get something like draw user information and my card. And this was just the first image I could grab, so it's the Amazon image. Sorry for that. So the toolbar has a layout of box using space between. This is exactly what the author says in here. Just use pack, which is justified content, space between, and I'm using space between. And then I thought, is this really the best way to go? And I viewed a lot of different tutorials myself to figure out, okay, what is the best way to have exactly this layout. And from my point of view, it's not this way to go. We do need a flex layout. So using the box layout is using the flex layout. Then we do have 2 items in here, and actually we do have 1, 2, 3 items. And to have most of the control, I would actually go without this. So just removing this for a second and layout. So now we just have 3 different items in here. And if I place on the second item a style with, oh, that's wrong, margin left of auto. Let's see what happens. Reload. So it's exactly the same. But now we just have, we are dropping this additional container around the button, around the buttons. And now we can style it wherever we go, we can style it the way we want to. So let me just show you. If we had a wrapper in here, it would wrap and we would probably get the different items underneath each other. So this is what I think giving me the most control, using the style in here and just adding a flex layout. But doing it the other way around, which I initially started with this additional container in here, adding just the HBox layout in here for convenience for myself to get a quick win here. So yeah, it's definitely exactly the same. Same as in here. We just have to center this. We could use the center layout on this one, would be the same. And in here, it's the same with using the margin. And then you have 3 items next to each other. And if you don't like, let me just see if I can redo this. Yes. Now, if I want to have the this one placed in the middle, then I can go with margin right, auto, and save this, run this. Let me just build it. And now you can see this is in the middle of what's left between here and here. So if this is something you want, that's fine. So having this centered, but what if I want to have it absolutely centered? And that's actually the next one the author goes over. So we want to have one item, another, and the third one should be perfectly centered in the middle. Okay, so let's go over center. Oh, this is not enough space. Let me just, yes, okay. So as you can see, this is always exactly in the middle. This is my company name. Let's say this is for a web page and you want your company name here, the logo exactly in the middle. And then you want to have some user information on the right side with the account stuff, or here you can, oh, sorry for that. I didn't want to do that yet because that's the next layout. I'm sorry for that. Okay, so, and a button. So, and if I collapse this a bit more, narrowing it for different devices, you can see that I get multi-lines here, I get multi-lines here, and now if I'm getting too narrow, I'm losing some information. But overall, this is very flexible. And so how do we do that? So let me just open the center. This is the main, these are the pages, and center. Okay, it didn't increase size yet, so let's go over here. Yes, okay. So the author says to do this, we have to say flex basis null and flex grow null. If you followed my last tutorial, you could figure out what is meant by flex basis and flex growth. Let's take a look at that. So if I have an item, let's go in here for the company logo where I added flex1. Let's go for that one in here, and let's take a look in here. Now you can see it says flex 110. This is flex shrink. Let's just open it. Flex grow, flex shrink, flex basis. Flex basis means that the item says I'm okay if I have 0 pixels, 0 width at the beginning, and if there is space left between all the items that have a flex layout, then I will take the same amount as all the other items if they have flex grow to 1 again. So the flex basis of 0 says initially I'm 0%, and then I'm growing at the same percentage as is given in here. Now the flex shrink, if I had 100% in here for this first thing, then let's just add 100, 100. Now this would say I will try to take up 100%. At a minimum, I want to take as much space as I'm width. And I'm shrinking at the ratio of 1. So it's taking up everything. Then if it figures out I can't use that much, so I have to get smaller and smaller up to the point where I'm fitting into this whole thing. And everything is fitting into one line. Because we are not having a wrapper right now. So because the last one has initial width of a flex basis of 0, it's getting lost in here. Because this one says I'm 100%. If you're 0, then you're gone. So at this point, this is what the author says, that you want to make sure that you're using flex grow and shrink at the right ratio for all the items. If the first one has a flex basis of 0 and this one has a flex basis of 0 and the flex grow is 1, then the item in the middle, which doesn't have a flex value, will always be perfectly centered. Let's take a look if that is true. So let me just reload, because we just figured out that out of the box we do have exactly this. It's flex basis of 0 and flex grow of 1. And this goes for the left and the right one. So the business logo will be always perfectly in the center. And that's what the author says everyone should know. So basically that's pretty much common knowledge. If you use I used in here the H box. I could already also use the box with a vertical true with the same result, but for convenience I'm just using the H box, and then adding to those items around my image I'm just adding the flex one. And for XJS this will do the trick exactly as the author says. Doing this on a toolbar looks exactly with, I just used this CLS X- panel header, works exactly as the standard title header, but I have way more control on the items in here. Perfectly for me. So what's the next one? Let's take a look. Even colors. Yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone knows how to use even colors. If not, let's go over this. I added this little button in here to show you even columns. All the columns have the same width exactly the same width, no matter how much I scale it. And we can get this from, did I add it in here? No button, yeah, in here. So I just added as a default. I added the H box again. Let's go for the V box now. Just for the fun of it. V box, save, reload. Click this button and we have all the items underneath each other. And going again here for the H box, because it's easy for me to scale it now. Having the H box, the V box, I would have to scale the width and height, and that doesn't fit my setup right now. So let's go over here, add this. And as you can see, all my items have a standard, a container with a flex 1, and each of them just has a different style. And that's how I built this. Using this flex 1 on all these items ensures that they all get the same size. Now, this is a perfect point, I think, to play a bit with a 100%, just to show that we get the same result in here. Click in here and it's the same result. The difference is that, let me just duplicate this row. I know it throws an error. Just to show the difference, this says all items start with a 0 width and then they scale by a ratio of 1 to whatever the other items are. So basically all get the same width. Using 100% will give all items 100% and shrink it by the ratio of 1 until it fits into one line. If we had a layout that would, let's start differently. If I had an item in here that already has a width, then that item would stick with the minimum width it's taking. And that's the difference, and that's why XJS standard is flex 1 and results into this. Because XJS just wants to make sure that everything fits into this space and that you have to make sure that everything fits into the container. Okay, so that's for the next one, even columns. In here, the author says, yeah, just for all items, say they have a basis of 100. So the author goes a different way and says, yeah, we have to make sure that everything fits into there. Therefore, the basis should be 100 and the growth should be 1. That's it. Okay, now vertically centered icons and texts. I'm not going over this one because if you're using XJS, then, and this basically is in the majority, the user uses here radio buttons. It's out of the box what you have to do, and I didn't want to rebuild it, but bear with me and we're going over something that is way better than this example. But definitely, yeah, everyone should know about this to make sure that the radio buttons are on the same side as position and that everything else takes up the full width. But let's wait for the next one. Not this one, just I will let you know as soon as I want to talk about that. So, header, content, footer. Again, this is something that is very straightforward for XJS. Let's just go over the standard. That's why I called it standard. Because how we can achieve this is in different ways. Header content. So let me close this again, scale this up. Okay. Basically, what we do typically is we do have a docked container on top, a docked on the bottom, and this one takes up all the space in between. We do not even have to do anything about that. But as we want to use the example from the author, we are going over this one and saying, okay, we want an orientation of vertical, so all items underneath each other, a pack of center, and a line of stretch to make sure that it stretches over the full width. And then everything should be centered. So let's take a look. We do need a flex in here to ensure that this one just takes a bit of space. The last one, the bottom one, the footer, takes the space it needs. And then we need, again, please excuse me for using H1, 2, 3 completely wrong in here. It's just quick styling. I should have done this differently. I'm sorry for that. So, and this one should take all the space that's left. So let's just save this, rerun it. And now the header takes as much space as it needs. The footer takes as much space as the H2 stuff tells the item to use. And then we have all the space in between used by this flex layout. And this is, I think, a very good example what flex is doing. It's just taking as much space as it really needs from the space that is left over. That's why you sometimes add in here, if you want to style things, sometimes you might go with a X-type spacer. Oh, wrong. X-type spacer. Let's take a look. In here, it's just, oh, I should have added. Let's add a style background color of green, and let's take a look how this really should look like. So now both items have the same amount of space. If I add in here, now we're going for the classic part, the classic framework part. Now you can see this is double the size of this, because spacer is nothing different than a component which has a flex, flex of 1. And in Classic, you do not have the spacer, so that's why you probably want to use the component flex 1. It's the same as in here. So for modern, if you want to use a flex 1 component, the shortcut is spacer. No need to use this. Saving it again. So this is how it works. Let me just revert it to this one just to explain it again. The top one will take 1 out of, and now you have to combine these numbers. 1 plus 2 is 3. So this one takes 1/3 and this takes 2/3 of the available space that's left over after deducting these outer containers, because they do have a fixed width, and whatever is left will be used from the flex layout. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the standard stuff which you definitely have to know if you're using XJS, because it's just everywhere. Okay. Oh, now we're getting to something really important, interesting. Do you remember when I said we do not go over this thingy? Because I thought this is pretty much the same and way more interesting. We do have alternating position of the faces in here, and this one should take up all the rest of the space. And let me just see to open this up in here. This is my list. Yes. Okay. So to show you this, I'm just using a data view list. It's pretty much the same as a grid, just taking less components and divs and stuff like that. So that's why I used the X-type list. And I created my own X-type in here and said, okay, just use this list example as a CLS for my styling. And then the interesting thing comes with this item template. That's why I used this list, because I can easily show I do have a span and I have a P component. So a span tag, a P tag, and the first one is my face and the second one is my text. I'm just binding a store. That's what I mentioned earlier. From my main view, I have this main model, and let's see. Okay, so we do have in here my data, which comes with face and text. It's a memory store, whatever you need to know about these probably later. Right now, the only interesting thing is we do have a face and a text. And in my list, I defined, okay, get me in the span, the face, and in the P tag, the text. And that's my store information in here to get exactly these information from here. I added an item CLS of row because the author says, okay, let's get some row thingy going on, and an item content CLS, which I will explain now why I'm using this. So let's go over here and take a look at how this is exactly set up. First of all, where do we start with a flex layout? That's probably the most important thing. And as you can see in here, I touch this flex button in my developer console, and I should get these very hard to see. Okay, let me hover over here. It's a thing of colors, misusing colors. I didn't test that before. I'm sorry for that. So right now we do have a flex layout, and let's see in here what exactly. I do already have that in here. So okay, so I have an align item center to make sure that everything goes centered top to bottom. And that's basically it. Let me just take a look at my CSS. I added the CSS here. So, okay, so my row inner. Let's find the row inner. Row inner. This is where the author starts. And I just made sure that we get the display flex in here, align items centered, and everything else is just styling with a bit of with this gap to make sure that the items are not sticking together. And then I'm going for, this is again just padding, so to make sure I get around the smiling faces and around the text I get some padding, and the border radius to ensure I get the same border radius around these yellow and purple items. And in here we just have some styling, same over here, and the important thing is this order to. Every second child of the row, every second row, the span items gets an order of 2. So in here the order is 1, 2. In here it is 0, 1. So just to make sure that we get the alternating view, I'm just setting for every second item the order of 2. And I'm pretty sure that you can think about a lot of different things where you can use exactly this. It doesn't only have to be for displaying this differently in here, but we could also say, let's go for another example and say, we do have this in here. Now let's see, where do we have Bollywood? Yeah, in here, row inner. The row inner has a certain color, and we're going here for row inner and saying background color should be red. It's most likely the most horrible design thing I ever did, but just to show what I mean, we get, oh, it's bad, but not that bad. Okay, so now we get on every even row, we get a different background color. So you can use this for tons of different things to style your grid, row, whatever. Or list, yeah, as in here. But this is basically the most important thing in here that we're using on a flex layout. We're using the order to for the different spans, and then we get a different styling for basically everything. Okay, so what's the next one? Custom label placement. Yeah, I thought about this too. And if you're working a lot with XJS, this should be very familiar to you from the button layout. Let's go in here and go to the button layout. As you can see in here, I'm the real button with the top aligned, so icon aligned top. Let me just close a bunch of these things to see where do I have this button. Okay, so this is my real button. It's an X-type button, icon aligned top. That's basically, if I change this to left, let me just save this, rerun this, and this is on the left side. So whatever we're doing, we just need to change the icon align. And I thought this is a perfect point to show you how the button is really created inside the source code. That's why I created the same thing. I just named it custom button. I added to all of these the icon align, icon CLS with the far home, font awesome home. And for all the different items, I just changed the text and the icon align. Text, icon align. So something has to be in this custom button, right? Let's take a look at that. So first of all, extend panel. Oh, this is, oh gosh, container. Yeah, sorry for that. Oh, okay. Why not panel? Because panel creates right away out the box. It comes with, you can add items docked to left, right, and so on. You can add the title and all these different things, and that's a completely overuse of a panel. That's why I'm should use container in here. Let's see if this still works. Oh, okay. So then I added some configs, and whenever you add a config, let's say text, which in the container itself we do not have a text, an icon CLS or icon align. It's just not within container. So that's why I'm adding the config for these things. Typically what this does, it creates a get text, it creates a set text, an update text, and it creates an apply text. That's what gets created if you add a config. And what that is good for is, it adds a text too. So like this, yeah. So all these things get created. This one is just to remember what wire added into here. So the get always emphasize, please use the getter, because if there is data bindings, if you're saying, yeah, underscore text equals my new text, then not trigger the data binding functionality, where there are so many things that can be bound to certain items. If you're going for this, you have to know that nothing will be triggered. If you're going with the set text and say, let me just use the same one as above, this dot set text, my new text, then this one will trigger all data bindings and stuff like that, and should go for this if you do not have a very good reason. Otherwise, please use the setter and getter. This for this apply text, which is based. This is a valid entry. I'm not going. This text doesn't write the underscore text thing. It just is for a convenient function for you to apply things to the DOM, or for your personal set text functionality which you would want to add. If I go in here and add set text, I could do that. That's totally fine. And I'm going in here for the value, and I'm saying, okay, and I'm doing the same thing as in here, which is find me the text element. I explain that later. DOM in a text, and add that value right in here for these positions. So let me just copy paste it in here. I would of text. So that one would never ever change. So my get text will always just get the initial value null. It will always return null. That's it. And that's not what we want. Therefore, I strongly recommend not to use the set text functionality, because then you have to add your own custom functionality with the setter, whatever you want to happen in there. Go for the update text and everything is fine. It will have the standard setter functionality already in there, just by adding to the config a text item. Key in here, and for the update text we're going for this. So, but how do icon element? All these things, pretty interesting, right? That happens by me adding, first of all, I added the class CLS x- button to ensure we get the same styling as the original, just not the hover effect with the pointer. And then for the element, we are adding an element which is placed inside my item. Let's just increase the size for this one. Okay, so this is my custom button. Yeah, so I added the x- button, as you can see in here, and everything else, like these things, like x has text and so on, we're getting that later. For now, let's just see, we are adding an icon element. As you can see in here, my first thing is an icon element. So my element itself is called element. That's this one. That's flex element, which you saw first thing in here. Then comes my children, and I'm adding a reference in here. So I'm adding icon element, font icon. I just did that to ensure that we get the same CLS as in the original button. So the reference is the trick to everything. If I add a reference icon element to something, or in here the text element, I can use in my updaters, I can go for the text element and the icon element. I just want to add in here the text element DOM set inner text, the CLS, for the item itself. That's why I have in here X has text, which you can see. That's from my update text. I could add, if this is null, remove that. That's additional functionality which you probably want to add if you're doing this component yourself. Now, if I update the icon CLS, I want to add a class with the same value as we entered. So that goes for the icon element. Just take a look in here. This one is my icon, which has x minus far minus home. And if you remember, in here we're adding x minus far minus home. So I'm just adding whatever you add in here to my custom component into the icon element, which is right in here. Next thing is to update, and this is what the author goes over in here. So I talked a lot about the standard functionality of XJS, but now let's take a look in here. The author says, okay, add something that is display flags. Align item center to make sure that everything is always centered in the middle. And adding a flex basis of 100. We are going with flex basis of null, of 0, it doesn't really matter. If you want to make sure that it always takes at least 100%, you're free to choose that. Now, if it is start, so from it's left, because I wanted to stick as close as possible to the standard button, the flex direction should be row reverse. Let's take a look. So if we have a item with start, then we want to have the item as a rows and columns, and to use it as a reverse. So with a reverse, I'm doing it the different way around. So I used left with row, right with row reverse, top with column, and bottom with column reverse. It's just because I did my icon as a first thing to stay as close to the Sencha as possible, and the text as a second thing. If I had the text element as a first, then I could go with exactly this definition from here. So what we are doing is we are writing the flex direction to the item itself. And I'm getting a value which is left, right, top or bottom. And I'm looking in my object here for the value to return the key, for the key, and I'm returning the value to get the correct item. Let's just take a look at how that looks in here. So we are adding in here something that is called style, flex direction, column. Let's take a look at the other ones. Top, so bottom would be the next. Column reverse. So now for the rows. This one has row reverse, and the last one comes with row. So it's just a matter of adding these styles, flex direction, to the parent element. And then I'm just adding X has icon, X has icon align with a value of left, right, top and bottom. The same as for XJS. Adding this to the parent, you can see in here X has icon, X icon align left. And I didn't have to write any CSS for that because I'm using the original button styling. Might want to change things if you're creating your own item, which has the option to place the of two items, left, right, bottom, left and bottom. It's basically something as in here. We could have done the same. But this one uses order and this one uses the flex direction.